A rare sighting to the left of your screen, at least, because yes, in the CBS News Broadcast Center, that is the one, the only, the legend, Chip Reid, who is with us here on the CBSN set.
It's amazing what $10 will get you around here.
Meanwhile, that is merely our senior political editor, Steve Chaggaris, in Washington. As we get started here, and fellas, there is a feeling of once more around the carousel here, Chip, promising a new phase now of the campaign, a pivot that a lot of people have been perhaps looking for a long time. But now the numbers are suggesting it may be too little too late. What do you think? Enough to salvage?
I think it's too early to say too little too late, actually. And you just heard Donald Trump say things will be a little different. I don't think he's going to be any different. He may stop talking about the Mexican judge and things like that, saying things that he knows are just incendiary. But is he still going to be the freewheeling Donald Trump, or is he going to be a carefully packaged and structured and scripted candidate? No, not a chance in the world is he going to change. But it's going to be different because it's going to be run by people who have experience in campaigns. I don't think he's going to be much different, but there's going to be an infrastructure. Paul Manafort and whoever else they bring know how to run campaigns, although it's been a while for Manafort, but they do know how to do it, and they do know how to bring in the people who can make it happen.
Steve, interestingly, if nothing else, this was news announced first thing Monday morning. This seemed to be prime material for a Friday afternoon news dump that might have burned itself out. But again, the personal aspect here, if nothing else, we heard, in fact, Dan Senor tell CBS this morning earlier today that Donald Trump, despite this, has a Donald Trump problem. 6 weeks of a general campaign gone. What to make of that loss?
Well, it was a period where he really could have made up a lot of ground in terms of getting the organization together, unifying the Republican Party, and he was off to a decent start at the beginning when you started to see Republicans come around, and then he opened his mouth and said some things that were quite controversial, whether it was talking about the Mexican judge or reacting to the Orlando shootings. And then you saw Republicans either jump ship or really start pulling back their endorsements and their support for him. That's not a good thing you want to do 4.5 months before. You don't want that kind of stuff happening 4.5 months before an election. So we're sitting in a period where he could have really gone after Hillary Clinton. She was still running in a campaign against Bernie Sanders, and none of that happened. He just really sort of piled on a lot more negative stuff, and he finds himself in a situation, luckily for him, not in a situation that he can't get out of. There's some polls that have come out today in swing states that show him at least competitive in some of these places. Yes, he doesn't have as much money compared to Hillary Clinton, but this is not something that he can't overcome. This is a different campaign that we're seeing. I know people are going to try to compare the amounts of money that he has to Hillary Clinton. We can talk a little bit more about that if you want, but he is a different candidate, and the other part of this is Hillary Clinton also is not the most well-liked candidate among the electorate, and so I think that gives him a little bit of a chance if he can figure out how to turn this thing around.
And Chip, we can't talk about it. The Clinton money machine right now is rolling over Donald Trump, and he is a different kind of candidate. That certainly worked in the GOP primary season. He said today, earlier today did Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton has money from people you don't want her to have money from. He invoked the pride he feels in running a skeletal campaign, albeit a cash poor one. And he invoked the landslides that he won certain states like New Hampshire, despite spending fractionally what his opponent spent. But again, he is invoking successes in a primary season which do not lend themselves historically to what we've seen a candidate needs come November.
The key there is historically. Anybody who tries to say Donald Trump's finished because he is not doing what historically has been necessary isn't remembering what happened last time around. And you may be right, like all the experts are saying, that a general election is different than a primary. But this is a different thing we've got going on here. I was very surprised this morning when the Quinnipiac poll came out, as Steve just mentioned, and in Pennsylvania and Ohio, they are tied. Even with all this bad news, even though polls are showing him behind by 6 points or even 12 points in national polls, he is still even in those two states where where a lot of people in his campaign have predicted they would do well because of the very large number of white middle-class voters. And that appears to be what's happening right now in those two states. So, and on the money front, he left the door open again this morning on one of the talk shows to self-funding his campaign. You know, he said in the past he doesn't want to have to sell a building to run this campaign, but he could. So who knows?
Who knows? We look ahead. We do know this, Steve, that Hillary Clinton today figures to land another body blow. It's been called a sequel, perhaps, to that speech she gave just a few weeks ago in San Diego, where she lined up the various foreign policy positions of Donald Trump. Today, we hear that she again will be looking to take him down for his economic policies. What damage could she do, especially considering that as we look at the GOP landscape at present, it does not seem that we will see many responses from surrogates?
Yeah, I mean, she is trying to do as much damage as she can at this point while a couple of things are happening. One, Trump is his campaign is in complete disarray. He has no money to counter what she's doing, whether it's in advertising or whether it's on the stump. And so she's really trying to get out there with him, really painting him with a negative brush. And it's interesting that she picks the two topics that we've seen so far. So last week was national security, foreign policy, and this week is the economy. You look at these polls that came out today, the Quinnipiac polls, and where is Donald Trump beating Hillary Clinton? He's beating her on the issues of how to deal with ISIS and how he would deal with the economy. He is beating her on both of those issues. So she's going after him at his two strengths, at least among voters. And she's really trying to take him down a peg in this period when he's going to have to really he doesn't have an opportunity to catch up at this point. And so she's hoping to really make a dent.
And again, we just saw the numbers on the screen, numbers that suggest all the other numbers we've just discussed may mean nothing whatsoever in an election cycle unlike any other. Chip Reid, great to have you in.
Great to be here, Josh.
The seat's always there for you, buddy. Steve, he's keeping it warm for you. We appreciate the time.
Appreciate it, Josh.